Shalom, everybody. So here's the question. Is Israel the final dividing factor for Christians in the end times? This is what I want to talk about today on the program. First, please consider subscribing, giving us thumbs up, and hitting notification, and also tell your friends. That is really, really helping us with exposure. So going back to King Solomon, he warned us in Ecclesiastes 1:9, and I quote, "That which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done, so there is nothing new under the sun." So when it comes to Satan and his hatred of the Jewish people, nothing has changed as to his ultimate goal. But his methods keep morphing and adapting to the times we live in. He hates the Jewish people as much as God loves them. And because the return of Yeshua and his reign in Jerusalem is connected to a Jewish invitation and acceptance of Yeshua as the Messiah of Israel, as we see in Zechariah 12:10, he, Satan, is obsessed with the complete destruction of the Jews. Even though he has never fully succeeded and never will, as we can also read in Jeremiah 31:35-37, Satan keeps trying, which results in many casualties, the highest being the Holocaust. Incidentally, with 1,200 innocent victims, including very young children and the elderly, the October 7th, 2023 terrorist attack was the highest Jewish death toll since the Holocaust. The aftermath of the attack has polarized the world. Israel is the polarizing factor. It took less than a week for the world to take sides either with Israel or with the Palestinians, not to mention Hamas. The mere fact that some civilized people would even consider siding with Hamas in their bloody carnage is a mystery to me. But it is a reality nevertheless. Within a week, just a week of the massacre, the number one topic was no longer the terrorist attack on Israeli civilians, but Israel's response to the attack in the form of Gaza ground operations to eradicate Hamas. There were even those who spoke of the need for Israel to respond proportionally. So wait a minute, I'm curious. Proportionally, does it mean that the IDF soldiers should have gone into the Gaza Strip and brutally murder infants, children, women, the elderly, and the handicapped? To be proportional, to be equal to what had been done to Israel on October 7th? That would be equivalent, right? I don't think that this is what was meant. This is the epitome of double standards. On October 7th, Hamas declared war on Israel, and when a war takes place, there are casualties, which include civilians. That's unfortunate, but that's the reality. It is inevitable. Israel did not provoke Hamas, but she responded to the bloodiest terrorist attack since 1948. Additionally, as they always do, the IDF reached out to the Palestinians living inside the Gaza Strip to let them know in advance by calling, sending leaflets, whatever they do, to let them know in advance that they would get in to destroy Hamas. No other country in the history of the world has ever warned people before they attack. This goes contrary to basic warfare. But Israel is more concerned about saving lives than killing innocent people, even if the lives saved are on the enemy's side. Now, to be sure, Palestinians are not the enemy. Hamas is. Palestinians are victims of Hamas, as we've seen them, Hamas, force people to stay in Gaza and even use their own people as human shields. This is what we've seen on the news that nobody wants to report. The issue of Israel is quickly and globally becoming a dividing factor. We are witnessing people chanting, "From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free," on university campuses, public places, and even government places. The vast majority of young people chanting that motto do not even know its meaning. In their search for what they believe is social justice, they become blinded to the truth and misguided by historical revisionism. Unbeknownst to them, they are calling for a complete genocide of the Jewish people. In a sense, they are promoting a 21st century version of the quote-unquote final solution to the Jewish question. There will always be people who support Israel's right to exist, based on the biblical covenants and brought onto the modern stage by the Balfour Declaration in 1917, the San Remo Conference in 1920, and the United Nations partitioning vote of 1947, prior to the birth of Israel as a modern state on May 14, 1948. The concern is that people who support Israel are becoming a rarity, even within the evangelical camp. Why are Christians turning their back on Israel? Why are people silent about the original massacre that took place on October 7th? How could such an irrational move take place? How could the victims become the perpetrators and be called the Nazis of the Middle East? Well, friends, I think the answer can be found in the Bible through the words of the prophet Zechariah. In the end times, which we are quickly approaching, you'd have to agree with me on that, the entire world will gang up against Israel. Zechariah 12:3 says, and I quote, "It will come about in that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it." Close quote. Taken literally and in context, this simply means that eventually the whole world will go against the Jews and Israel without exception, at least corporately. It doesn't mean that every single human being will become an enemy of the Jews, but rather that every country and or government will become Israel's enemy, while some of the people within might remain friendly to the Jewish people in a Jewish state. The result will be the same and can be found just a few verses later in the same Zechariah chapter 12 and verse 9, and I quote, "And in that day," God is speaking, "I will set about to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem." Close quote. When God vows to avenge Israel and destroy all of her enemies. Now, none of what is happening should come as a surprise to students of the Bible who also take Bible prophecy very seriously, like I do. The world is not falling apart. God's program is falling into place. Israel might increasingly be viewed as a thorn in the flesh of the world and a hindrance to world peace, but God will not be fooled. As we approach the final chapter of history before the return of the Messiah, Israel will undoubtedly become more and more of a pariah on a global scale, but that will never change God's promise to preserve her and his promise to also destroy all those who go after her. It's very sad to see people take sides, especially with Hamas, and victimizing the perpetrators. I personally cannot fathom how a Bible-believing Christian could possibly love God so much and hate Israel so much at the same time. Asaph spoke against that very behavior in Psalm 83, verses 1 through 5, and I quote, "O God, do not remain quiet, do not be silent, and O God, do not be still. For behold, your enemies make an uproar, and those who hate you have exalted themselves. They make shrewd plans against your people, and conspire together against your treasured ones. They have said, come and let us wipe them out as a nation, that the name of Israel be remembered no more." Close quote. For they have conspired together with one mind against you, they make a covenant. That's the rest of the verse. That's right. If you hate Israel, you hate the God of Israel. As a Christian, you cannot be in God's will to bring him glory and hate his chosen people. As the whole world is becoming increasingly polarized on the issue of Israel, Christians should not hesitate. They should take God's side and be friendly to Israel and the Jewish people. This might actually become the best opportunity we have to rebuild bridges burnt by centuries of anti-Semitism and share the hope we all have in Messiah. Standing up and speaking out for the truth and in support of Israel and the Jewish people might feel lonely at times, but ultimately, my friend, we are standing with God. So let's choose the right side. Thank you, and until next time, shalom and be blessed.